Especially if you're looking to lose weight. The worst thing that can happen is you go out for a few drinks, you've had your 2 wines, as you always would have done. It lowers your defences, lowers your willpower, and those munchies look so interesting. And it's very, very tempting to start eating chips and nuts and crisps and whatever bar snacks are around, or just having the bread with the meal because hey, you've had a couple of glasses of wine, so why wouldn't I have the bread? Before you know it, you've gone full-blown carbs, and you're well out of ketosis. It wasn't the alcohol, it was everything else that you consume. So a lot of people do find that they just don't have the willpower once they've had a few drinks, because it does relax them, and it is that you become the party animal, and you just eat whatever's going. So welcome back, and I think today we're talking about alcohol, isn't that right, Mike?
Would you fancy a drink?
Well, I used to, and it's fair to say, and I think it's good to start with this. I used to drink a fair bit, because over the course of, a lot at times.
For the size of your body, you consume a huge amount of alcohol.
It is, but if I go way back,
yes,
so I was in corporate life for many years. I was a typical student. What do students do? A lot of students drink. Then I was in corporate life, and I wined and I dined, and my drinks at the time were wine and whiskey. So I used to have a big whiskey collection, and I would take people out for whiskey tastings and do the whole whiskey thing. And then over the years, my taste changed, and I ended up at a point where I used to drink a lot of beer, and Corona was my beer of choice. And I would easily consume 10, 12 Coronas in a day, plus a bunch of vodka as well.
And I've got to take some responsibility for that, because I introduced you to Corona.
You did.
And we have consumed thousands of Coronas. So I think it's important for people who are tuning in to realise that sometimes when people hear people talking, it sounds like that person has always had a clean lifestyle and never had alcohol cross their lips. We have done alcohol in every way, shape or form. We have spent many hours drinking, trying lots of different drinks, and now with our reformed life, alcohol is not a part of it at all, but we fully understand how important alcohol is for a lot of people, and how alcohol plays a huge part in a lot of people's lives, and therefore how difficult it is to modify their alcohol relationship when they're moving on to keto.
Makes sense, and we do get lots of questions from people who say, I would love to try keto, but do I have to give up alcohol?
Yes.
And that's because people either relax with alcohol, or they're social drinkers, or they just enjoy it. They might be wine buff, or like me, they enjoyed their whiskey, or they enjoy a few beers at the weekend. So it doesn't really matter where you are on the spectrum. It's good to understand what alcohol does to you and where alcohol fits in that keto lifestyle, if at all.
And then you can make those choices. So if you understand how alcohol will impact your keto transition or your keto lifestyle, then it's not don't ever drink again, but it's if you are going to drink, at least understand the consequences. And if you are going to drink, be loud and proud and say, I'm going to have a drink because I'm at a wedding and I'm having a toast and I'm celebrating the bride and groom, I'm having a glass of champagne, that's great.
Exactly.
But you understand the impact of that.
That's exactly right. And I think, probably good to start with, where do we sit on this? At the end of the day, a single glass, the odd glass of alcohol of any kind, probably isn't going to knock you out of ketosis.
True.
And isn't, it's not bad. But if you're drinking, fairly big quantities regularly, then it's going to be very hard to get into and stay in ketosis.
Yes.
So, certainly if your goal is to lose weight, if your goal is to get more energy, if your goal is to be in ketosis and get all of the health benefits, then you really want to review your alcohol consumption, because it could well affect all of those goals and affect your success.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, because they may not understand the different types of drinks and the alcohol content and the carbohydrate content, they work really hard on their keto, on their diet, on their food, and they make the mistake of maybe consuming an alcoholic drink that throws them out of keto if they're believing that it doesn't impact their keto balance. So it's important to have that knowledge. So we're talking about drinks, so can we just get some definitions around that, just so everyone's really clear?
So let's just start with this. When we're thinking about alcohol, there's a few things to think about. The first one is how much alcohol is actually in the drink. So we know that some drinks are very light on alcohol.
Yes.
spritzers, for example. Some drinks are, moderate in alcohol, your beers,
Yep.
then you're going up to your wines, and then you're going up to your spirits.
So as a collective, we're talking beers, wines, spirits, and then those mixers, those pre-packaged mixers where they've got alcohol and some sort of flavour in a bottle or a can. That's probably the main groups.
And maybe your spritzers might come in at the bottom end.
What are spritzers?
Spritzers, you take your wine and you add some
Okay,
mineral water.
It's like cocktails.
It's kind of like cocktail, but it's one of the ways a lot of women use this, and they're very, very common, where somebody will take, a very small serve of wine, maybe a white wine, add some sparkling mineral water, so they've basically diluted the wine. So it's a very limited serving, very small serving of wine, just in a bit of water.
Never heard of it.
Spritzer. So spritzer's going to be on the low end.
Yes.
Beers, wines, spirits, and then those mixers, and of course your cocktails and all that sort of stuff as well.
Those other things.
So the first thing we're looking at is how much alcohol have we got in there. The second thing we're going to take a look at, and we'll talk all these through, is how much carbohydrate have you got in there. But I think before we get to all of that, let's just have a quick look at what's the impact of drinking alcohol when you're in ketosis.
Good point.
So like I said, a single drink is probably not going to knock you out of ketosis, and it's probably not going to go over your carb allowance for the day.
Yes.
You're going to be really hard pressed to find a drink that's got more than, say, 20 or 30 grams of carbohydrates. If you're really pushing it, some of maybe the rum and Coke, if it's a full strength Coke.
Or the big fancy cocktails.
The big fancy cocktails, those very, when you go to the resorts, you get those almost like a goldfish bowl.
Yes, the meal.
Then they will,
Yeah.
they definitely will. They have a lot of carbohydrates, but a typical regular sized drink is not going to knock you out. A few drinks probably will. And the other thing to remember is that they are going to be impacting your liver. So your liver's working already to keep you in ketosis. You're putting an extra load onto the liver. Now, if you've been a big drinker and you've got fatty liver, or you've been a big sugar consumer and you've got non-alcohol fatty liver, then you're putting extra load on the liver. So it's not going to feel that good.
So first, before we talk about what's in the drinks, any drink with any alcohol is going to impact the liver because you're putting a chemical in your body of any percentage, could be 2% right up to 30 or 40%, and it's going to impact the liver. That's
Exactly right.
True.
So, your liver's got to do all of that work,
Yep.
and you're adding on extra work for it to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So, you've got to be mindful of that, depending on what your goal is.
Yes.
So if you're looking to detox, you're looking to lose weight, it could impact. If you're looking to, nice segue, if you're looking to lose weight, calories are going to be important to you, and carbs are going to be important as well. So any amount of alcohol may affect your weight loss, might stall it, might actually see you losing weight slower than you would otherwise have done.
Because alcohol itself, the 100% alcohol, has its own calories, isn't it?
It's got...
So we don't worry about the mixers or anything
calories.
else. So it's got its own calories. So even if you're just having a shot, some people say, well, I'm just having a vodka shot. So a vodka shot itself is very low in carbs, but it has calories in the alcohol.
It does, and we'll come back to that when we talk about vodka itself. So, you've got a whole bunch of things that are going to go on in the body when you have alcohol. Remembering as well that you're likely to get a worse hangover if you're consuming alcohol
Keto
when
hangover.
you're... Not the keto hangover, this is the alcohol hangover.
Yes.
But here we're talking about, we're on keto and we take alcohol.
Yes.
So, at this point in time, we don't have carbs in our stomach, so there's no alcohol getting absorbed by the carbs, and we're becoming a bit more sensitive to the alcohol. So people tend to find, a lot of it's anecdotal evidence, but people tend to find their hangovers are much worse and they are far more sensitive. So if you were the sort of person where 2 big glasses of wine and you start to get a bit tipsy, you might reach that point after 1 big glass of wine.
Wow.
So
Saves you money.
It potentially saves you money, but it's risky.
It's risky. Okay, just knowing.
And that's the other key thing, is if you're on this, especially if you're looking to lose weight, the worst thing that can happen is you go out for a few drinks, you've had your 2 wines, as you always would have done. It lowers your defences, lowers your willpower, and those munchies look so interesting. And it's very, very tempting to start eating chips and nuts and crisps and, whatever bar snacks are around. Or just, having the bread with the meal because, hey, you've had a couple of glasses of wine. So why wouldn't I have the bread? Before you know it, you've gone full-blown carbs and you're well out of ketosis. It wasn't the alcohol, it was everything else that you consumed. So a lot of people do find that they just don't have the willpower once they've had a few drinks, because it does relax them, and it is that, you become the party animal, and you just eat whatever's going.
Understand.
So be aware of that.
Be aware. Red flag, little
Red
alcohol
flag.
red flag, and if you do, you're going to get the worst hangover anyway. So it's really not worthwhile.
So is it really worth it? So
All right.
so where do we start? So let's look at the different drinks, and I think probably a good one to start with is beer. So we were, big beer drinkers, as you said. We were Corona drinkers.
Corona fans.
And
shout out to our sponsors, Corona.
Corona. And if you look at beer, what's in beer? Well, beer tends to have, I would say, between 5 and 8% alcohol. So first of all, you've got alcohol in there, and then you've got anywhere between, for a regular beer, probably 10 to 15 grams of the carbohydrates, and they're coming from the original grains that that went into the beer that it was fermented from.
Yes.
So you've got probably around 100 to 150 calories in a regular bottled beer. So it's a fair number of calories. It's quite a lot of carbs. It's getting close to your daily allowance, and there's some alcohol in there as well. So beer's really 1, maybe 2. Beyond that, you're going to start affecting your level of
and there is obviously the low carb alternatives now. So there's a lot of companies that are bringing out either zero carb or low carb beers.
Yeah.
So they're an alternative. One of the challenges with beers, as we all know, is beers is one of those drinks where you don't often have a beer. Most people have 1 or 2 or 3. It seems to be quite a social drink where you have multiple beers. Whereas you might sip on a scotch and have little sips. Whereas a beer, you have it seems to be drunk at a slightly faster pace, and so you're having multiple beers, and those calories and carbohydrates add up quite quickly.
They do. I mean, if you think about it, you go to a beach resort, you order a bucket of beers, might be 5 beers.
That's just it.
And that's just me, exactly right. Make sure you get the ice in there, get them nice and cold, bring me the lime. But yeah, you do. You're ordering a bucket, you've got 5 beers, and it's very easy to consume 2 or 3 of those and then grab another bucket. Before you know it, you've had a couple more.
Yes.
And I think because they are quite weak, in terms of drinking them, they don't taste strongly alcoholic. You don't feel drunk after 1 or 2 beers. It is very easy to consume them. And if it's a hot day, like I said, you're down at the beach, then they're a great way, so it feels at the time, to cool down and rehydrate and refresh. So I think beers are very easy to over-consume. Again, you're at a footy match, you've gone to watch your favourite sports team, whatever it is, and again, you're on the beers. Even if you have 1 per quarter, 4 quarters, that's 4 beers. That's a significant amount of alcohol, carbs, and calories.
Yep, absolutely.
So
beers are not good.
Beers are not good, but as you said, there are a lot of manufacturers now realising that people want low carbohydrate or they want low alcohol, and so there are lots of reasonable beers out there. We've tried a few. We've gone and done the beer tastings, and some of them are actually pretty good. And even if you just take Corona there as an example, they've got their full strength, but they've got the Corona Ligera, and that's got less carbohydrates, significantly less, about a third, and it's got less alcohol as well.
Yes.
So, there's a good alternative. It tastes pretty similar to the original version, and if you're out, you can probably have 3 or 4 of those and still be okay. You might suffer a few after effects the next day, but you're probably still all right.
So most companies have a Ligera type or a lighter, low carb, low calorie beer, depending on what country you're tuning in from.
That's it. So, and the only other thing to think about is what additives have gone in there. So, has it been sweetened with something artificial? Is there any high fructose corn syrup in there? Because that's really going to derail you. But so have a look at the ingredients. You don't need to be really fastidious, but just know what you're drinking.
Yes. Right, beers, then wines. Red wines, white wines.
White, red, and champagne.
Okay.
So all around about the same amount of carbohydrates. Now, wines have got less carbohydrates typically than beers have got, so it makes them a slightly better choice. On the other hand, wines tend to be much higher in alcohol, so very easy to have a couple of glasses of wine, feel a bit tipsy, and like I said, fall into that trap of getting the munchies.
Yep.
And because a lot of our wines now have more alcohol in them,
Yes.
and they're being served in bigger and bigger glasses, bigger and bigger serves.
Of course.
You know, so 5 years ago, you probably would have got half to 2/3 of the quantity. Again, typically red wines a little bit heavier on the carbs, touch heavier on the alcohol. White wines, dry white wines. So if you're going for a white wine, go for a dry.
Why is that?
The reason is the sweeter varieties simply have more sugar in them.
Of course, that makes sense.
So, you know, when wine is manufactured and it's, you know, when you're actually trying to make a sweet or a dry, it's simply governed by the amount of sugar that's left in the wine. So those sweeter wines, the Rieslings, and especially when you get onto the liqueur wines like the ice vine and those sort of things, they are very, very syrupy. And they tend to be quite high in carbohydrates. So watch out for the sweet wines because they've probably got a lot more carbs than you realise.
And then your spritzers sit in here because that's the wine mixed with
They do.
a mixer of some type.
That's it. So you've got the red wine, the white wine. They're not a bad choice. Then you've got the champagnes, which are a touch lower in carbohydrates
Yes.
and typically served in smaller glasses.
Yes.
So if you think about
flutes.
it, the flute will typically have less in it, volume, than a regular wine glass.
Okay.
So you might be getting 250 millilitres of wine, you might only get 125 or 150 millilitres in your champagne glass. So there's quite a big difference in the quantity.
Yep.
And a lot of people find it's more difficult to drink lots of champagne
Because of the bubbles.
because of the bubbles
Yep.
and it tends to have that.
And one does sip champagne. It's a very elegant thing to do. With your finger up, you sip the champagne with a bit of elegance and dignity.
Decorum.
Decorum. Right, so
You do.
beers, wines.
And then spritzers you mentioned.
Spritzers, yep.
So spritzers, so again, think about the fact you've taken maybe a dry white and you've taken a fifth of a normal serving, so 20%, and you've added some fizzy water to it, some mineral water. So you've not got a lot of alcohol left, you've not got a lot of carbohydrates left, and you've not got a lot of calories. So if you want to be social, you want to have a drink.
Which is important for some people. They love to not feel like they're ostracised or they're being left out. They've got a champagne glass in their hand or a wine glass, but it's only 1/5 wine or champagne, with the rest is the mineral.
That's it. So the great thing about spritzers, and they are a bit of an acquired taste because they're quite dilute. But I think the girls have got it right on this one, to be honest, because what you're getting is a little bit of alcohol. So like you said, you're social. So if I've gone for drinks after work, I can have a spritzer. I can still drive, so it's not going to push me over the limit alcohol-wise. It's got lots of water in it, so I'm getting my water at the same time as my wine, so I'm hydrated. And because it's a big drink, I can't drink lots and lots of them, so it's going to take me 5 of those to be equivalent to 1 glass of wine.
Yes.
So I can have 5 spritzers.
Yes.
So in many respects, it's an ideal drink if you're wanting to have a drink and stay in ketosis.
If you're a wine drinker, you like the wine taste and concept. Yeah, a lot of people say let's go to spirits, but sometimes it's nice for people just to be able to have a wine alternative that feels like they're drinking wine. They can socialise and be part of the group, but they're only having a very small proportion of the carbs, the calories, and the alcohol.
And a lot of people don't like going to the hard spirits, because psychologically for some people that's a step that they don't want to take.
Absolutely.
So let's go to the spirits,
Go to the
talking of
spirits.
those. And we've got a whole range, and in some ways spirits are a good option for keto, depending on the size, depending on the type. So if we're thinking about things like vodka, gin, tequila whiskey, they're all zero carbs.
Right.
Now they're not zero in terms of alcohol. So
No.
back to your point from earlier, let me give an example. Vodka has no sugar, no carbs, no additives, nothing. When you get a bottle of vodka, if it's 40%, which is 80 degrees proof, then that will have in it 40% of that bottle will be simply the alcohol, 60% will be water, and that's it.
Right.
You've got some trace things in there, but it's basically 40% alcohol, 60% water.
It's very clean.
Very, very clean, but it still has calories. So if I take a 1.5 ounce shot, so about a 45 gram shot, that is going to be around about 100 calories. So it's still, if I have 3 or 4 of those, I've still had quite a lot of calories. And people don't realise if you do that a few days at the weekend, you've stacked up a whole bunch of
You're
empty
thinking you're doing
calories.
the right thing because you're having vodka, which is thought of as a clean alcoholic drink and a great keto alternative, but 2 or 3 of those, the calories add up.
They do.
And obviously there's still a fair chunk of chemical, the alcohol, going onto the liver and making the liver work extra hard. So there's still that impact of having a significant amount more alcohol.
There is. So if you are going down the the route of spirits, then watching the calories, vodka's a good choice. It is clean. It is one of the most pure spirits. So the clearer, the less colour.
Yes.
So one time I say lack of colour is good. Normally I say colourful is good, but in this case, clear is good, because clear means no impurities,
Yes.
less hangovers, less adverse effects in the body.
Right.
So because that vodka is pure ethanol, there's very little else in there, it's kinder to the body than some of the other spirits that are dark, because that dark comes from other chemicals that are basically going to impact the body. So vodka's a good choice, especially if you mix it with perhaps, again, sparkling mineral water, and you put a dash of fresh lime in there. So nice freshly squeezed lime. You've got yourself a nice refreshing drink. Just watch out for the quantity of vodka that's gone in, because you don't taste it. It's very easy to have a very large quantity. Somebody's put 2 shots in instead of just 1.
Yeah.
And you don't realise.
And that tends to be, I guess, most people's challenge with spirits is that most people, I'm generalising, most people don't drink spirits straight. Most people mix spirits with a mixer of some type. And for a lot of people, just sparkling water or water is not nice, is not what they want. So they are looking for the lemon flavour or the ginger beer flavour or the Coca-Cola flavour.
Or the Red Bull.
Or the Red Bull flavour. So they're looking for mixers, and they're trying to find either a 0 carb, 0 calorie mixer, or unfortunately they're going for those the colas and things with lots of sugar.
Yeah.
So any suggestions on mixers that you could choose that are more keto friendly?
Yeah, look, that's a really difficult one, because our view is that you want to avoid, obviously, the sugary mixers.
Yep.
So you want to avoid all your full threads.
Yeah. So the 0 carb ones are not so the better, but the non-zero carb ones are the worst. The ones that are full of sugar.
The ones
full
that
of
are full of sugar. So you don't want to be going for your regular Cokes and Pepsis and those, or your Pepsi Maxes and those sort of things, your Red Bulls. I would advocate you don't want to be going for the low-calorie versions either. So the Coke Zero and those sort of things. Remember that artificial sweeteners, first of all, can have big impacts on the body.
Yes.
And secondly, they can trick your palate.
Yep.
So you think, you're actually satisfying that reward circuit in the brain, so you want more and more and more, so very addictive. So you're really not helping yourself with the artificial sweeteners, but if it's the only choice for you, okay, go for it. The other sort of things that people will add are fresh juices, but again, they're high in sugar, and high in carbs, high in calories. So typically I would stick with fresh lemon juice, fresh lime juice. You might add mineral water with something like an Angostura bitters, which has got quite a flavour to it.
Just a couple of drops, it's easy.
Even a lemon and lime bitters, it is sweetened, but if you go easy on the bitters and you go heavy on the mineral water, then you're not going to get too much.
Yep.
And other than that, really, it gets quite tricky, I think, with mixers.
So it's easy to play it safe and go for those low-calorie mixers if possible. If you really have to have a mixer that's a sweetened mixer, then the low calories or the zero sugar ones are the best option, but they're still full of preservatives and full of chemicals that we really don't want adding to a really clean keto diet.
You really want to, you really want to think about it if you're going down that path.
All right, the last one we touched on earlier, which is you've talked about spritzers, now the mixers, because there is thousands of pre-mixed drinks in a can of whether it's the bourbons and cokes, the rum and colas, or the vodka and lemons. You can buy anything almost in a small bottle or a can. What's the good, bad, and ugly on those?
So I think the good is that you know what you're getting.
Okay.
So if you go into a bar and you order a typical cocktail, or you order a mixer, you don't really know everything that's in it. You don't know what quality is, you don't know what brand it is. You'll see the alcohol going in. You may or may not know exactly how much has gone in, so you're guessing. The good thing about the mixes in a bottle or a can is you can actually have a look at the nutritional information that's on the label. You can see how many calories, you can see how many carbohydrates, and you can see exactly what you're consuming, additives and everything else.
Good.
That is probably the only good thing. What you're getting in most cases is lots of additives because they're keeping the ingredients fresh. Because it's in a can and it's convenient, it's expensive, and they're also selling you probably fairly dubious quality and usually fairly dilute. So you're not getting a lot for your money, to be quite honest, and they're usually quite heavily sweetened.
I'm trying to make it as pleasant as possible.
They are the sugary, the sweet. Many of them, and we've been through the alcohol pops era where they targeted more of the teenagers.
Yep.
So that's really what they were designed for, the sugary mixes to get you addicted and keep you buying. So, they should come with a big health warning, and they certainly don't really fit particularly well with the keto diet.
All right. So what's the takeaway? We wanted to talk about alcohol. The takeaway is a glass occasionally, knowing what you're having is not going to throw you into ketosis. And sometimes it's just nice to be able to, be able to celebrate and not have to think about it. But if you drink alcohol regularly, it will impact your keto lifestyle. And then if you are having alcohol, if you choose to have alcohol, it's about being really clear on what alcohol you're choosing, what's in the alcohol, understanding the alcohol content and obviously the chemical on the liver and the calories, but also what the alcohol comes with, be it in a bottle or in a mixer.
It is. So I
Interesting.
think, quick summary headlines. I would say steer away from the beers.
Yes.
I would say go for enjoy a really nice wine. If you're a wine drinker, enjoy a really good quality wine and have a glass. So if you're a couple, share a glass between you. Make the bottle last 2 or
3 years.
maybe three nights, and just really enjoy it,
Yes.
savor it.
Yes.
So that's the wine side, and then if you are out, then perhaps go for the spritzer or something like the vodka with the mineral water. It's going to be your lowest calorie and it's going to be your lowest carb alternative.
Excellent. Great information. So thanks for your time. Join us again on the next Peaks Live.